Terry Barber is a best-selling author and founder of Lighthouse Catholic Media. Jesse Romero is a retired law enforcement officer, a former kickboxing champion with a master's degree in theology. And together, they share a passion for evangelization and PhDs in common sense. You're listening to The Terry and Jesse Show on Immaculate Heart Radio. To join the show, call 888-526-2151. Here's Terry and Jesse.
Pull up a chair, grab your favorite drink. Let's have a conversation. Just you and us. Today's gospel, it's so beautiful because Jesus Christ told Nathanael that he's not a hypocrite. You're saying, come on, where did he say that in the gospel? Yep, that's what Jesus Christ said in John chapter 1, verse 45 to 51. Philip found Nathanael and told him, we have found the one whom Moses wrote in the law, and also the prophets, Jesus, son of Joseph from Nazareth. But Nathanael said to him, can anything good come from Nazareth? Philip said to him, come and see. Jesus saw Nathanael coming towards him and said of him, here is a true child of Israel. There is no duplicity in him. I'm going to stop right there. What does Jesus mean by complimenting Nathanael? He says, there's no duplicity in Nathanael. You know what that means? The word duplicity means he's not a hypocrite. The word duplicity means he doesn't deceive people. You know who is the deceiver, by the way? It's the devil. This is probably the highest compliment that God can pay you. If God looks at you on Judgment Day and says, Terry, Jess, you're not duplicitous, which means, Terry, Jess, you guys weren't hypocrites.
You're the real deal.
You guys never deceived anybody.
Yep.
And then look at what it says here. Mm-hmm. Now, because a lot of people, for all you apologists out there, a lot of us say, well, Peter was the first one that affirmed that Jesus Christ was the Messiah. Nope. Put on your apologetics hat. Okay? The first one to proclaim him as the Messiah was Nathanael in John chapter 1, verse 41 to 51. Look at what Nathanael says. He says, Rabbi, you are the Son of God. You are the King of Israel. So for all you apologists, the first apostle that affirmed Jesus as the Son of God, the Messiah, was Nathanael. All I can say is, Saint Nathanael, pray for us.
Amen to that. All right, I have, this is an amazing story. Did you hear about a former KKK leader who became a Catholic priest? No, yeah, yes, is this microphone on? Yes, a member of the Ku Klux Klan. He was a leader back in the 70s, who, became a Catholic priest. He's a Catholic priest in Arlington, Virginia, and he's temporarily stepping down after revealing he was a member of the Ku Klux Klan. Comes 40 years after he becoming a Catholic. He actually had a major conversion. And so I just wanted to bring this up because I don't think anybody's heard about this priest. And Father has decided that he tell his whole story. He said, I was an impressionable man when I was young and got tied into the Ku Klux Klan. It's public information, but it rarely comes up, he says. He said this, as an adult, I became a Catholic, but I wasn't practicing my faith. He said, the irony is that I left an anti-Catholic hate group to rejoin the Catholic Church is really amazing. The remainder of his radical transformation was possible through through Jesus Christ and his mercy. So I want to call all you Ku Klux Klan members to Jesus Christ right now. This is an amazing story. What do you think about this?
This is a Saul of Tarsus becoming Paul the Apostle through an encounter with Jesus Christ.
That's it.
And this Catholic priest, I have to give him a lot of credit. First of all, he didn't have to come out and say this. He could have just obviously confessed it and it's under the blood of Jesus and moved on.
Yep.
But I guess his heart was so stirred by seeing a lot of the evil white supremacists and the KKK in these last couple of days, and a lot of the public demonstrations, the despicable public demonstrations, and as a result of that, I think this stirred something in this priest's mind and heart where he says, you know what, I got to come clean, and I got to just come open with this, and I got to denounce this, and I've got to just humble myself and humiliate myself. His name is Father Aitchison, Father William Aitchison. he wrote an editorial in the Arlington Catholic Herald, and he's stepping down temporarily. Now, the diocese is saying there's no accusations of racism or bigotry against this priest throughout his entire time in the Diocese of Arlington. But he voluntarily, he of himself, did you get that? He wants to step away from public ministry for the well-being of the church and the parish community, and his request was approved by the bishop.
He has a powerful message, okay, to this white supremacy. He said in his message, "You will find no fulfillment in this ideology. Your hate will never be satisfied. Your anger will never subdue." He said, "I encourage you to find peace and mercy in only one place where it is authentic and unending, in Jesus Christ." What a message to give to that group. He also, "I ask for your prayers for the victim of racism and bigotry. Pray that they will never feel like anything less than children of God and bestow the dignity of love." I say this because this is his message. He said, "I'm going to pray for those who perpetuate racist beliefs and wrongly believe that they're superior to others. God forgives everyone who's truly," mention this, "repents." See, there's no mercy without asking for it. And he's telling those people, nobody's outside of God's mercy, but you need to ask. Nobody's outside his loving grasp. With conversion to Jesus Christ, you can find new life and truth. Father, preach it. I love it.
I love his humility too, because this shows how repentant he truly is.
Absolutely.
For his youthful indiscretions. This is a very inspirational story, because most men usually don't come clean like this. Okay? Most men hide this stuff.
Yeah. Humility, that's what's in there.
This takes incredible humility to go back 40 years and to admit as a Catholic priest, to admit that you were a former KKK leader, and the way you're throwing yourself down in the mercy of God at this point.
Wow.
Look at what he says here. 40 years have passed. I must say this. I'm sorry. To anyone who's been subjected of racism or bigotry, I'm sorry. I have no excuse, but I hope you will forgive me.
Wow.
Father, you know what? This is exactly what men are made of. When somebody could look at himself and say, you know what, I blew it, man, and I need to make atonement. You know, here's a powerful thought if you haven't really realized this. Every single one of us, God isn't done with any of us yet. In other words, all of us are saints under construction. My question to you, is God working on you right now? Are you in the process of conversion? And are you a saint under construction?
What makes me think of what Bishop Sheen said to 2,150 inmates in jail. He said, "Gentlemen, there's no difference between you and me. The only difference is you got caught. We're all sinners." So, Father, thank you for sharing that. Think of people like Father Donald Calloway, all these conversion stories of people who lived, St. Augustine. So I want to give away something that fits what Father's doing, his massive conversion. Father Calloway's DVD, No Turning Back. I want to give also a DVD set, a CD set on the angels, what every Catholic needs to know, because October 2nd is coming up and we're going to have the Feast of the Guardian Angel. But I want you to be a high information Catholic. Sometimes I'm convinced, Father's conversion story, what he's saying today, is going to bring many souls to Christ. That's my take, because people are going to look at that and go, wow, he's just like me, except I haven't repented. I want forgiveness too. Thank you, Father Atkinson, for sharing the good news of Jesus Christ to us.
Moving right along, well, same topic.
Yeah.
There's another good article. It says, nobody has more in common with white supremacists than the abortion industry.
Absolutely.
It's very well written. The Richard Spencer, who's the neo-Nazi who actually coined the term alt-right, and he has a website, it's called altright.com, which is, again, it's a neo-Nazi website. Richard Spencer, he affirmed the fact that the alt-right really does not believe in human rights. And Richard Spencer, this neo-Nazi, he also approves and explains the eugenic effect of legal abortion in reducing the African-American population. He basically said that smart white people use abortion for the right reasons. And he's also said basically that abortion could be dispensed with preborn children diagnosed with Down syndrome. And Richard Spencer, this neo-Nazi white supremacist, he's also cited his inspiration of a person called Lothrop Stoddard. Who is he? He's a long-dead Klansman who thought that African Americans posed a threat to white civilization, and he wrote a white supremacist book called The Rising Tide of Color. And so you basically see these white supremacists, neo-Nazis, Richard Spencer and his ilk, they totally support abortion. They totally support Planned Parenthood. They totally support birth control. Why? Because they believe in Margaret Sanger's plan, the Negro Extermination Project, that we have to reduce the Negro population. So both of these people, they're cut from the same cloth. The white supremacist neo-Nazis and the abortion industry and Margaret Sanger, they play the same fiddle. You
can find out more on this article by going to CatholicRC.org or JesseRomero.com. And when we come back, I'm going to give a quote from Margaret Sanger that she said in 1939. That's going to amaze you. But someone just mentioned to me, my engineer, let's give away 22 conversion stories on MP3. It's called Why Be Catholic. It's 22 different people, Scott Hahn, Tim Staples, Jess Romero's on it. Variety of conversion stories. Since we're talking about conversions, you can pick that up by calling 877-526-2151. It's a $20 MP3, but it's valued over $100. The number, 877-526-2151. MP3, 22 hours of conversion stories. That'll get you. Go to CatholicRC.org. And we come back. My teaser is this. Wait till you hear what Margaret Sanger has to say about my immigrants. Whoa, you're not going to miss that. We'll be right back.
Back to the Terry and Jesse Show on Immaculate Heart Radio. Want to join the conversation? Call 888-526-2151. Now here's Terry and Jesse.
We're too blessed to be stressed, too anointed to be disappointed. Terry, what's that famous quote from Margaret Sanger? Something about Margaret Sanger, the founder of the Birth Control League, which later morphed into Planned Parenthood.
Yes.
She was a racist. She went... Yes, her target audience was blacks. However,
go ahead.
Everybody else that's not white have, like today, for example, if you go to Planned Parenthood's website, you'll find that 82% of the abortion clinics are in minority areas.
Absolutely.
So now she's going after anybody who's not white. But her target audience back in the 1920s was black people.
Yeah, in 1939, if she said this, but if she was alive today, no doubt she would be a leading figure on the alt-right. Her views of eugenics and race nearly are identical, because what she said in 1939 was called the Negro Project. Sanger noted that we do not want to go out that we do not want it to go out that we want to exterminate the Negro population. What? Well, I'll tell you what, man, it's out. And I think everybody needs to know that that's her position, and that's what Planned Parenthood is following. Okay, I'll continue. Now I'll read from the article. Negro population, and the minister is the man who can straighten out the idea if it ever occurs to any of their more rebellious members. In March of that same year, she wrote in a letter that a drastic curtailment of birth rates at the source of the unfit, diseased, incompetent was necessary, and to accomplish this, the birth control clinics all over the country are doing their utmost to reach the minorities of our population. Do you realize since Roe versus Wade, Planned Parenthood has helped them? Are you ready? Oh, nearly 20 million African American babies have been aborted. Okay, I'm not an African American, but you know what? They're babies. They're humans that God has made, and we're just going to let them get away with that? No way. Planned Parenthood, you need to cease your business because you're racist.
Margaret Sanger even wrote in a book, it's called The Pivot of Civilization. She called minorities, she called them human weeds. Did you know that?
Yep.
Did you know that? Did you know that Margaret Sanger, in her book, The Pivot of Civilization, she called for the cessation of charity for the segregation of morons, misfits, and the maladjusted. In other words, what she's saying here, did you know that Margaret Sanger is basically saying that charitable organizations that seek to better the lives of these inferior human beings were, in Margaret Sanger's opinion, delaying the progress of the human race? because according to her, progress can only be white. So Margaret Sanger and this other racist in history who's been passed away, Lothrop Stoddard, they left no doubt as to what their position was. And those people today that are part of the white racist KKK, they are right in league and right in bed with the white supremacists that started the abortion industry.
Did you know this? That 35.6% of abortions from Planned Parenthood are performed on black women in the United States, even though they only make up 13% of the female population. What does that tell you? It tells me that it's a racist organization, and racism shouldn't be anywhere in our country. And so I'm going to encourage everyone to pray. Yes, pray that Planned Parenthood will cease to exist so that we will stop aborting so many minorities through Planned Parenthood. They're the ones that are promoting this. And so I just want to call them out on that. And I would like to ask you if you think the same way, or do you think I'm over-exaggerating? Our toll-free number is 888-526-2151. We're going to be talking about other topics about education, but this, to me, we have to continue to hit where most of our problems in our country all stem from, and that, I'll tell you what it stems from: killing unborn babies, contraception from Humana Vitae, and the teachings of the church are not being implemented. And so I sound like John the Baptist. It's because we need to do this because people need to be set free with the truth, not their passions.
The answer to racism is Catholicism.
Absolutely.
Why? Jesus Christ started the Catholic Church. Do you realize that the Catholic Church is in every country on planet Earth? In 198 countries, we have Catholics from every race and nationality on planet Earth. Why? Because they listened to the words of Jesus in John 17:23.
That's right.
He said, "From many, one." And that's Catholicism. From many, one. And also, St. Paul tells us in Galatians chapter 3, verse 26, he says about the Catholic faith, about Christianity, there is neither Jew nor Greek, male nor female, slave or free man, but all are one in Christ. Catholicism is the answer to racism, because those that get to heaven are saved by grace, not race. Nobody's saved by race. You don't show God, I'm a white supremacist, or I'm part of Antifa, or I'm part of the Chicano party movement. None of that gets you to heaven. What gets you to heaven is sanctifying grace. Are you a child of God? Yes or no? If you're a child of God, you're in. If you're not a child of God, you're out. So there will be vetting in heaven. Let's go to Fulton Sheen. He talks about badness. What makes something bad? Archbishop Fulton Sheen says this in his daily reflections on my blog, JesseRomero.com. He says this: what makes a thing bad? Well, here is a pencil. This is a good pencil, he writes. That's why it was made. Is it a good can opener? It certainly is not. Suppose I try to use the pencil as a can opener. What happens? First of all, I do not open the can. I do not attain the purpose for which I use the pencil. Second, I destroy the pencil. Now, if I, for example, decide to do certain things which I ought not to do, I do not attain the purpose for which I was created. For example, becoming an alcoholic does not make me happy. Furthermore, I destroy myself just as I destroyed the pencil in using it to open a can. So, when I disobey God, I do not make myself very happy on the inside, and I certainly destroy any piece of soul that I ought to have, close quote. Here's the point. God didn't make you a racist. God didn't make anybody a racist. God made you to be his child. God made you to know, love, and serve him in this lifetime and to spend all eternity with him in the next. And so you know what happens? Like Fulton Sheen says, if you misuse your life, if you become a racist, you are misusing and destroying yourself, and you're disobeying God, and you're misusing your entire life, your entire personhood. How do you know that you're firing all cylinders? Accept Jesus Christ. Become a child of God. Come into the Catholic faith. The doors are open. We're welcoming you in, racists. Come on in. Leave your racism at the porch and come on in and be part of the family of God. And become colorblind and realize that truth has no color. You were made to know, love, and serve God in this lifetime, and when you die, get to heaven. Guess what? Racists don't get to heaven.
Amen.
Black racists, brown racists, white racists do not get to heaven. That offends God, and that's a mortal sin.
And that's why I want to give away 23 conversion stories, because many of these conversion stories talk about prejudice and how they had a prejudice against the Catholic Church, and then they become Catholic, like Scott Hahn, Tim Staples, Jeff Cavins. All of these guys are in this video, in this one MP3 disc. You want to get it? Just call 877-526-2151. And by the way, you're getting me fired up about this because we're talking about conversion. I have something that I think helps people, a Catholic care package. People that are away from the church, you might have a brother or sister. I have a package I send to them with my phone number, my cell number, inviting them back to the church. It's 6 CDs and DVDs that will encourage them to come home, because sometimes they don't want to hear it from their brother or their mother, but they can listen to a CD and be more open to the truths of the faith. So it's been very successful. I'd like to ask you to send it to your relative by calling 877-526-2151. And by the way, if you go to CatholicRC.org, if you're going to be buying or selling a house, all you got to do is click on Pro-Life Realtor. And if you click on that, you're going to get a good pro-life realtor who's knowledgeable, at least 10 years of experience, to help sell your house or help you buy a house. And when the escrow closes, a portion of it comes back to fund the Terry and Jesse Show at the Catholic Resource Center. Go to CatholicRC.org. And when we come back, we've got some interesting things about the media to talk about. I'm going to ask you, do you believe everything that the media says? I don't. But this article is going to make it even abundantly clear that we can't just assume what the media says is the gospel.
Here's one last thing I'd like to share with you as you sit down there sipping your coffee or sipping your tea.
Yeah.
Did you know that converts to the Catholic faith tend to be more conservative leaning? Did you know that? Mm-hmm. And do you know that it gets under a lot of people's skin? There's a lot of progressive, liberal, cradle Catholic writers. They are upset that when converts come in, they embrace orthodoxy. And a lot of them are complaining. A lot of cradle Catholics that are progressive and liberal that write, they're complaining about being lectured about the Catholic faith from people who are not born into the church. And there's a Catholic convert, Matthew Schmitz. He not only defends his honor as a convert to the Catholic faith, but he totally demolishes the weak argument of cradle Catholic liberals who don't like to be lectured about the truth about the Catholic faith. That's good news. I don't know about you, but it's good news for our church that converts come in and they don't embrace kumbaya Catholicism and balloons, banners, and butterflies. They embrace orthodoxy. Welcome, converts. We need you. Help us make the church stronger.
You can find out more on that article by going to CatholicRC.org or JesseRomero.com. That article is very inspiring. After 40 years of being in apostolic work, I've met hundreds of converts, and I can attest they're coming to become a Catholic because they're tired of liberalism. What do I mean by that? Liberalism. Well, what do you think? Oh, you don't agree? Start your own church. You know what they tell me when they become a Catholic? They say, finally, on the authority of Jesus Christ, where things, I believe now in an apostolic church. I believe in the teachings of Christ on morality, on marriage. This is what brings them in. It doesn't bring them in to just offer them pizza and ice cream. No, you offer them the truth and you don't compromise. That's what we're doing here at the Terry and Jesse Show. When we come back, we've got some more interesting information about the news and do you trust it? We'll be back in a minute. God bless you. We'll be right back.
This is Bishop David O'Connell, and you're listening to the Terry and Jesse Show at Immaculate Heart Radio.
Back to the Terry and Jesse Show on Immaculate Heart Radio. Want to join the conversation? Call 888-526-2151. Now here's Terry and Jesse.
Pull up a chair, pour yourself your favorite drink, grab a snack. Let's have a conversation as brothers in Christ, as a family of God. In this one article that we have here, A Church That Is a Home by Matthew Schmitz, he says something here that I've seen all my life, and I scratch my head. Here's what he calls it, tribal Catholicism. Then he mentions a politician called James Blaine, who you and I would call a cradle Catholic. He was born and raised in the Catholic Church. James Blaine was a politician, born to a Catholic mother and father, and he, as a politician, he tried to win the presidency, but he didn't win. He put forth what's called the Blaine Amendment, and it's a law that shackles the Catholic Church in this country even today, the Blaine Amendment. And I say that because there's a lot of cradle Catholics, politicians. I think in politics we're producing a lot of James Blaines, a lot of cradle Catholics who are doing a lot of damage to the Catholic Church using politics. That's the point that I'm making. And this article says this one sentence, and we'll move on. It's a very powerful sentence. It says this: others who shared their dissatisfaction stayed within it, meaning the Catholic Church, hoping to save the church by secularizing it. In other words, have you ever thought about this? A lot of the problems that we have in the Catholic Church are from cradle Catholics, and you know what they say when you talk to them? When you see that they're open dissenters. They don't agree with the Catholic Church on virtually anything. And then you say, so why do you remain in the Catholic Church? They'll tell you. A lot of them work in dioceses. They work in chancery offices. They have positions of power, DREs. I'll say, so why are you in the Catholic Church if you don't agree with A, B, C, D, E, and F? I'm here because I want to change the church. Yeah, I'm dissatisfied with the church, Jesse, but I'm here because I hope to save the church by changing the church. That's the mantra you hear. And these people, this is tribal Catholicism. It's dangerous. And it started with this politician, James Blaine, who started using politics to beat up the Catholic Church. I'm done.
Jesse, you don't hear that from converts, do you? All right. Hey, I want to ask a question earlier about, do we believe in the media, the media? Do we trust them? Well, the fact is that it's at an all-time low. Did you know that 2/3 of Americans believe mainstream press publishes fake news? 2/3 of us. That's 2 out of 3 people. How about you? Do you believe that they're putting out fake news? Well, I'll give you an example. Tomorrow, I'm going to mention it. In Charlottesville, somebody just gave me a good article for tomorrow. It's a teaser right now about all this was set up in Charlottesville so that the police didn't back down. They wouldn't do anything if the people got violent. What? If that's true, I want to hear that. I mean, but you see, the point of it is, why don't we tell the truth in the media? I'll tell you what my take is. Because they're not interested in the truth. You know what they're interested in? Selling newspapers, getting people to watch their news. So whatever that takes, I know that I'm judging them, but they've been around for a long time doing that. I've actually talked about this. I'll give an example of fake news. Our doctor, one of the doctors who's on our, Vince Fortunace, he's an expert on marijuana. He went to all the media to show that marijuana has a terrible effect on the brain 2 years ago before here in California. And you know what the media told him? He told me this. Nobody wanted to hear that. We're not willing to put you on the air. Okay? Now, we put him on our radio show, but what does that say? There's an agenda in the media. Do you believe that? I do. I got an example in a story that just tells you, simple. They don't want to hear the truth when it comes to certain things about money. Follow the money. California's making money on marijuana. We don't want to hear the good doctor who's an expert tell us that we shouldn't legalize marijuana. And there's an example why we don't trust the media. I don't.
This article, it says 2/3 of Americans did you know that? That's a huge number.
2 out of 3.
I mean, what's that, like 60% or 65%?
66.
Yeah, 66. This article, by the way, if you're saying, well, who put this out? Cheryl Atkinson, who's an Emmy award-winning investigative journalist. She's an author of the New York Times bestsellers, The Smear and Stonewall. And she has a Sunday TV program called Sinclair Sunday. She's basically saying something that all of us have known for decades. And I can tell you this. I'll tell you why we know that the media has a bias. It's pretty simple. Because most of the media, another study that I've read, that most of the people that work for the media don't go to church, don't go to synagogue, don't have any religious conviction,
just the
don't
facts.
Have any religious sensibilities.
That's true.
The article that I read, it said about 95% of those that work in the media are secular. In other words, they don't have a faith commitment. So let me ask you, do you believe that if somebody doesn't, in other words, what I'm saying is that our worldview is colored by what we believe, by our personal belief. It impacts, it colors our worldview. I'll be honest with you. I see everything. I mean, I'm a former fighter. I'm a former cop. I'm obviously involved in the political conversations as well. I'm a husband, father, a human being. I live here in Phoenix, Arizona. Everything that I see or everything that I comment on, I'll be honest, full disclosure, it's colored by my Catholic faith. I look at the world through Catholic, Christian, gospel bifocals. I'm honest. But most of the people that work in the media, they see the world through an atheistic, relativistic worldview. And the problem is they don't admit it. And that's why we finally have a president who, for the first time in history, in my lifetime, he's calling them out. He's calling them fake news.
Well, Fulton Sheen said it. Moral principles do not depend on a majority of vote. So if the news people vote on, we won't play that because it's going to look bad, then we won't do it. But Fulton Sheen said it back in 1953. Moral principles do not depend on a majority vote. Wrong is wrong, even if everybody is wrong. Right is right, even if nobody is right. So that's what Jesse is saying regarding our Catholic faith. We see things through the light of faith and reason together. We don't just call it because, it's our faith. No, reason and faith go together. And so the difference between the media is when you got 95% of them that don't believe in God, well, then what kind of moral conscience are they going to judge things with? No, they're not. They're going to be able to say, well, what's going to put money in my pocket? That's the number one game in my life. I'm not looking long term. I'm looking what's it going to pay the bills for this week and this month on the payroll. Then we need to do this. And that's unfortunate. So that's why having Immaculate Heart Radio and EWTN and other good Catholic media outlets, you're going to get the Catholic faith view on the situation on racism and things like that rather than fake news. And that's my take on it. Do you agree with that? If not, tell me why. Call me at 888-526-2151.
Did you know that UCLA actually studied the media to see if there's media bias? Now, UCLA is no conservative, traditional Catholic college.
Of course not.
It's a liberal bastion in Southern California. But in 2005, they basically investigated all the major media outlets. UCLA, Professor Tim Grosclose, a political scientist professor, said this: virtually all major media outlets in the United States tilt to the left. Did you know that? UCLA professor said this. He says, many media outlets tilt to the left because surveys have shown that reporters tend to vote more Democrat than Republican. And here's another thing that the UCLA political science professor said. Okay? I wonder if he still has a job. I'm just thinking out loud here.
Really?
Yeah. He said, of the 20 major media outlets that he studied, he says 18 scored left of center, with CBS Evening News, the New York Times, and the LA Times ranking second, third, and fourth as the most liberal behind the pages of the Wall Street Journal. He says only Fox News and the Washington Times scored right of center. So there it is. This is a study's been done by UCLA. So the facts are in. And he also said about NPR. He says, according to this UCLA study, that NPR ranked eight of the most liberal of the 20 outlets that were examined. Now you know, and here's one more. Just 7%. The Washington Post put this one out.
Yeah.
Only 7% of journalists are Republicans. Okay, 93% of journalists are Democrats. So, if you think there's no media bias, there's the facts.
Well, and as I say, we're not right versus left. We're right versus wrong. These are just the facts that Jesse gave. Some people could say, well, Jess, you're leaning on one. No, these are the facts of the study. Now, when we come back, I want to share with you something that's going to touch anybody who has a son or daughter in college. There's an impact that's going on right now in colleges all across the country. The numbers are down, some so far as 35%. You want to know why? After the break, we're going to tell you what we think from this article from the Wall Street Journal, why so many students aren't returning back to college. And you're going to find it as fascinating, I'm sure. If you want to get that CD set, What Every Catholic Should Know About Angels, we have the Guardian Angel Feast Day coming up, September 2nd. This is by Father William Wagner. He's the priest that Scott Hahn said is the best theologian on angelology. You're going to love the CD set. It's amazing what he has to say. Everything you want to know about angels, you can get the first CD for free. You just pay the shipping or get the set at a discount by calling 877-526-2151 or go online to catholicrc.org. Remember, when we come back, this is going to be fascinating. Why are so many colleges, the numbers are down this year? The answer is going to surprise you when we come back here at the Terry and Jesse Show. We're honored to have you have another cup of coffee at the break. Fill your cup of coffee up again. We're still going. We'd love to have you call in if you have a question or comment. 888-526-2151. We'll be back with the Grid News in a moment.
This is Dr. Scott Hahn, and you are listening to the Terry and Jesse Show on Immaculate Heart Radio.
Have you ever wondered, do people have free will in heaven? That's an intellectual Charlie horse. Here's the question. Do the saints have free will in heaven? Think about that. Well, if you want the answer, go to my blog. I answer that question from good Catholic St. Thomas philosophy. Do souls in heaven, are you going to have free will when you're in heaven, when you're in the presence of God? You want that answer? Go to my blog, jesseromero.com. Let's move on from heaven, let's move on to planet Earth. This article about the University of Missouri, they've basically gone too far, and they've been impacted now. Their enrollment's been impacted because of the 2015 protests. I mean, it's almost been 2 years ago when radical student activists at the University of Missouri, they threw their campus into chaos, just like many other places. We've seen Berkeley and many other places. And they started staging these, melodramatic protests that led to the resignation of their president, the chancellor, and it made national news for weeks. But now here's the real kicker. Did you know that as a result of these protests and this anarchy and insurrection by the students, guess what's happened? There's a dramatic dip in enrollment. And as a result of that, the University of Missouri, they're having to lay off a whole lot of people, staff cuts.
Yep.
Why? Because a lot of people are starting to scratch their head. They're starting to say, why should I send my kid to this college that has campus radicalism? I don't want my kid to be caught up in this. And so the University of Missouri, and I believe others in the country, are going to start paying for their radical liberal activism in this university. Guess what? Freshman enrollment has plummeted 35%, which has caused the University of Missouri to lay off 100 people and also eliminate 300 more job positions. Why? I'll tell you why. This is the result of the progressive secular colleges that indoctrinate our teenagers. And parents are waking up and they're sending their kids elsewhere. Hey, Catholic parents, the Cardinal Newman Guide of Catholic College is a good resource if you're trying to find a good kid for your school.
Absolutely. And if you have a son or daughter going to college, would you really want them to go to a college? I'll never forget, my daughter graduated from UC Irvine. And what an example. They were having all kinds of issues. There were protests going on. And this was a situation where they wanted my daughter to come and do the protest because they wanted free tuition and that we shouldn't have to pay money at UC Irvine, that we should just get free money. And I'll never forget my daughter looking at me and said, I told the girl, I said, you know what? I'm too busy to protest. I've got to go to work. Well, you see, I instilled in her that there are no free lunches, that you have to work to get something. And I can understand why a lot of people are are not supporting secular colleges because they are doing all kinds of radical things that are undermining our Catholic faith. Jesse nailed it. Go to get the good schools we have in California, like John Paul II the Great, Thomas Aquinas. Jesse's got a son in Kansas going to college. And Jess, why don't you tell us what kind of environment he's in?
It's incredible. Benedictine College in Atchison, Kansas. I can tell you, I've got 3 young adults, and my youngest they're all practicing their faith, but there's also gradations of commitment. My youngest son, you could tell the difference in his commitment to Jesus Christ and the Catholic faith. My other 2 kids went to secular colleges. I mean, I tried everything to try to get them to go to a good Catholic university. Told I'll pay the entire tuition, 100%. I'll buy you. They weren't, and you know what? It shows. All I can tell you that it shows. I mean, everybody has to make an account of their faith. It shows the mistakes they've made, and it shows in terms of their faith commitment. They are practicing their faith, but nowhere near the level of my youngest son, because again, they were attacked for 4 years in these secular colleges. And they would come back home and ask me questions. But I could just imagine, most kids don't have me as their father. They came home and they're asking, Dad, how do I write this paper? Dad, how do I argue this position? Dad, how do I argue atheism? Cavemen, how do I argue against Galileo affair and all these things? And I would sit then and I would teach my 2 kids that went to a secular college, okay, here's your source. Here's the way you should argue. Get this footnote. But I'm telling you, I could see why most Catholic kids and Protestant kids, they get wiped out. They lose their faith entirely in one of these secular colleges because most of their parents are checked out. And most of their parents don't have a strong faith commitment themselves. You know, I can remember when schools, they used to major on reading, writing, and arithmetic. Now a lot of these colleges and schools, they major on recycling, reproductive rights, and relativism. I see a lot of these schools are seminaries for atheism.
And I'll give you one more, my take on this education. The biggest influence you can have on your kids is dad, not mom. Mom, God bless mom. But if dad is practicing his Catholic faith fervently and leading the family in prayer, leading the family in following Jesus Christ, the percentage of those kids not living their faith is minute, okay? So what's the answer? Get dad engaged. That's why we have men's conferences. Mom, I know you listen to the Terry and Jesse show, and many of them tell me, boy, I wish my husband was more fervent in his faith. What? I'll tell you my suggestion. Get him involved with the men's movement. There's all kinds of them. Go to your parish, go to the diocese, find out what men's group I can have my husband get involved with, because I'm going to tell you, if dad's not practicing the faith, and mom, you're as fervent as the Blessed Mother, guess what? The percentages of your kids, 1 out of 3 by the time they're 23, are not going to be practicing their faith. In other words, 1 out of 3 will be practicing. The others will not. It's a terrible percentage. 23% are not practicing, and I lay it all on Dad. Mom, you're great. Dad, get into the act. Get back into your faith. Lead your family. Act like a man. Get down on your knees and pray, and lead your family to Jesus Christ, and your kids will stay Catholic.
That's right. So why is it that most of these colleges, in fact, there's a Barna research, I'm pulling it up here. It says 60 to 90% of Christian kids will lose their faith during college.
Wow.
Why is
terrible?
That? I'll tell you why. Because here's another article, Washington Post, Howard Kurtz. He says that college faculties, I don't know if you realize this, lean further to the left, and there are more left-leaning professors than there are conservative professors. He says this, 72% of those teaching at American universities and colleges are liberal, and 15% are conservative. And so Howard Kurtz writes, the imbalance is almost as striking in partisan terms. He says 50% of faculty members surveyed identified themselves as Democrats, 11% as Republicans. And he also writes this, the disparities even more pronounced at those Ivy League elite schools, where according to the study, like in Princeton and Columbia and Harvard, 87% of the faculty are liberal and 30% are conservative. Is this microphone on? So what do you tell your kids? Here's what you do. Dad, you have to be involved in their faith life.
Amen.
Dad, you have to be involved in their school. Have your kid get plugged into a ministry at their parish when they come home on the weekends, or at the Newman Center when they go to college. Also, help them take a leadership role on campus. Say, you know what, son, why don't you start a Catholic Bible study? You start a Catholic apologetics. Okay, you start something to get the Catholic kids in your sphere of influence to meet once a week and pray the rosary or do something. Also, have your kid attend good summer projects. Say, hey, son, you know, this summer, how about helping out as a missionary here? How about going over and taking some good classes at this Catholic university for the summer? So have them do something in the summer that's going to build this Catholic faith. Send them to a focused retreat this summer. Send them to a Net Ministries retreat this summer. These are good Catholic young adults that are evangelical, teach apologetics, and they have workshops in the summer to teach our kids how to learn and defend their faith. And then finally, last thing I would say is this. You got to make it a priority to live your Catholic faith, so when your kids come home on the weekend or in the summer, they see the Catholic faith being lived. They see mom and dad going to Holy Hour, praying the rosary, going to Mass, doing grace before meal, morning prayer, evening prayer, reading the Bible every day. You have to make your faith a priority so your kids see this, and Catholicism no longer becomes a culture, it becomes part of their DNA.
You got that right. Wow. Talk is cheap. The supply exceeds the demand. We have to show our faith in our families. And, Dad, you're the leader. And I have these CDs called Waiting for You. It's the Catholic Care Package. Mom, if you think your husband would listen to these, that might motivate him. I've got Father Calloway. I've got Scott Hahn. I've got some amazing conversions. I've got a Satanist becoming a Catholic, Betty Brennan. These are all part of a Catholic Care Package. You can get that by calling 877-526-2151. What Jesse said about dads is so true. I believe we have a crisis of fatherhood in the country right now. And think about this. Ask yourself, have you thought about this? Like when you go to Sunday Mass, look around and see how many men are in church. We need more of us, more men to come back to church. If you're a guy that's been away from the church right now and you're listening, you're waiting for me to call you back, I'm doing it. Go to confession, get back with the good graces of the Lord, and lead your family to Christ. Wow. Again, if you want to get the articles, you want to get more information, you can find out more on it. Just go to CatholicRC.org or JesseRomero.com. If you want Jesse Romero to come to your parish and speak in Spanish or English, go to his website, JesseRomero.com. If you'd like me to come and speak on evangelization, go to CatholicRC.org or call 877-526-2151. Jesse, what state should we be living in?
There's 50 states in this beautiful country. I say every Catholic, we should all live in the state of grace. All 70 million of us. And there's one state that no Catholic of the 70 million in this country should go to live in. That's called the state of mortal sin. Stay away from it. And remember this. Ask yourself this question. Is prayer your steering wheel or is it your spare tire? Hang on to that steering wheel. God love you. Keep the faith.